So recently I asked you guys what would be a good amount for a low budget setup. Now most of you voted for 100 euros. So in today's video we're going to try to set up a low budget aquascape for 100 euros. Let's see if we can pull this off. I'm excited, hope you guys are excited as well. I think we can all agree that aquascaping or the aquarium hobby in general can be pretty expensive. But I also think that with a few smart choices and a little bit of patience, you can still set up a really beautiful aquarium without spending too much. I have an empty spot on the shelf and hopefully with my 100 euro budget I can create something that will fit nicely in there. So the first thing we need is a tank, and the best place to look for a cheap aquarium is on second-hand websites. Here in the Netherlands we have marktplaats.nl and that's where I'll start. Okay, I think I just found the perfect ad, guys. I stumbled on this 30-liter NANO cube, so it's exactly the size that I want. But it comes with a bunch of other things. He's also selling a light, hang on the back filter, and a heater. I wasn't actually planning on using a heater, but if we do get one, then we can also turn this into like a little low-budget Betta setup, for example. So all that, and he's asking 90 euros, which I think is really a good deal. But of course we're trying to keep it as cheap as possible, so I'm just going to give him a lowball offer of 60 euros. Let's see if he gets back to us. Okay guys, I think we might just be very lucky. The guy replied, he agreed with 60 euros, so I'm now on my way to pick up the tank. So if the tank is in good condition, the light as well and everything, then I think we got ourselves a very good deal. Okay, we did it. We have the hang on the back filter. Unfortunately there's no media in there, so we do have to buy some media for this. The light, this is a Twinstar 300C. We have the power supply for the light and it comes with a little dimmer as well. And he actually gave me a second hang on the back filter, so maybe we just use this one instead of the Aqua Clear. I'm not sure yet. And then we have the tank itself. So this is a 30-liter cube from Rotala and it's actually measuring 30 by 30 by 35. So it's a little bit taller than a normal cube, or it's not actually a cube. Depends on how you want to look at it. So yeah, I don't really see any, well, there's maybe a few scratches on the glass, but they're very small, very minimal. So I think we got a pretty solid deal here. Okay, so we have 40 euros left to spend and we still need a substrate, we still need some hardscape, plants, and I'm thinking of adding some CO2 as well. So it's going to be tricky. I'm now at my local garden center and I'm hoping to find a cheap substrate here. Like normally I would of course use Aquasol in all my tanks, but Aquasol is quite expensive. It's not going to work for this setup. So for a cheap substrate we have two options. We can just use gravel and add some root taps, or we can go with the dirt method where you use organic topsoil for example and cover that with gravel. I found these cheap root taps for ponds, so I'm thinking of going with the first option. Okay guys, I think this might be the biggest challenge. Obviously we're going to need some hardscape as well. It doesn't really fit in the budget to buy anything. So I'm thinking to source something locally. Now where I live I do have a lot of forest, so it's probably going to be very easy just to find a couple of branches, but we don't really have any rivers, so I'm thinking it's going to be very difficult to find some rocks here. But who knows, I'm just gonna have a walk around here, see if I can find anything. First of all, who wears white sneakers to the forest? But yeah, finding some hardscape was not easy. Most of the branches were just straight and boring, and besides a few random bricks, there were no rocks to be found. After walking around for an hour, I did manage to find a few interesting branches, including this one. So I did not expect that finding the rocks would be the most difficult thing about this low budget challenge. So in order to keep going, to stop wasting time, I've just grabbed 2 river boulders from my own collection. So kind of giving myself a free pass here. So the rocks are the only thing that I'm not going to buy in this video. And I chose river rocks because I think these are the most commonly available for people. Even in different parts of the Netherlands, you can actually just pick these up from the nature. So I think right now we have everything we need to get started. The only thing that's missing is the plants, but we'll get to that later. I've also picked up some background foil. This is the frosty, milky background foil. This roll was 7 euros. And I've also bought some super glue. This was, I think, 4 euros, something like that. And then the hang on the back filter. I'm gonna stick to the Aqua Clear. I've just grabbed all the media from that other filter and added in here. So that's sorted as well. Okay, background installed, so we can now also add the lights. Here we go. And that's our empty canvas ready to be scaped. For a low budget tank it actually looks quite fancy. So we're all ready to start scaping. Obviously we're going to start with the substrate first. So we have the plant tabs and we have the plant substrate. Now the plant tabs are kind of like clumps. So I'm thinking taking one of those clumps and crush it and turn it into a smaller powder, I guess. Sprinkle that on the bottom glass, cover it with the plant substrate, and that's it. Yeah, so these were designed for pond plants, so I'm sure they'll be fine for the aquarium as well. So now we're going to cover those nutrients with the plant substrate. According to the packaging, they should also contain some nutrients, and it should also be covered with either sand or gravel. Obviously we're not going to do that because we don't have anything, so I'm just going to use it as it is. It just looks like regular crushed lava rock, so I think it will be fine. Here we go, nice and easy. It looks pretty good as well. And I was a little bit worried that it might not be enough, but it looks like it's the perfect amount. We have a decent layer in front and a slightly thicker layer in the back. So I think it's good. We can now move on to the hardscape. Okay, so it's time to add in the wood. Obviously I have no idea what kind of wood this is. I just found it in the forest lying on the ground. So I have no idea if it's going to work, if it's going to start rotting or whatever. This is all very much just an experiment and we just have to keep our fingers crossed. So this piece right here is the nicest looking piece, so I'll use this as the main focal point and then just add in a few smaller branches. Yeah, let's give that a try. Okay, I think this will be the hardscape. So it's that one thicker branch and then I just added two small twigs just to make it a little bit more interesting. And then the hang on the back filter fits behind it, the heater fits behind it, and then we can just cover that right corner with some stem plants or something, you know. So yeah, super simple, but I think it looks nice. So the next step is to glue the hardscape together. For that I'm going to use the super glue and some paper towels. Super glue has been added to the shopping list. Paper towels, I think everybody has that at home. If not, you can also use tissue paper or toilet paper. Okay guys, hardscape is secure, nothing is moving anymore. I did have to use quite a bit of glue and paper towels to keep everything in place. So you do see quite a lot of these white spots on the hardscape now. That's okay, we can later cover that up with plants. Now speaking of plants, when I started this challenge, I was thinking I'm just going to find plants on Facebook Marketplace or even in Facebook groups, you know, like on Facebook you have a lot of groups where people just offer their plant cuttings. But I've been keeping an eye on those Facebook groups for the past few days and nothing really interesting popped up. Most of it was just suitable for larger tanks. So I decided it would be best to just order plants online. And here in the Netherlands you have quite a few websites where you can order plants for relatively cheap, like 2 to 3 euros per pot. So that's what I did. And those plants just came in, so let me quickly open this up so I can show you what I got. So we have 5 pots over here. We have some Rotala, some Bacopa, some Monte Carlo and some Repens. Then I have another pot with some Hygrophila pinnatifida. I have some floating plants and a little tub with some weeping moss. And all this together was like, I think 22, 23 euro or something like that. So we'll start with the Monte Carlo. Now obviously we just have 1 pot of each plant, so we're gonna have to spread it out quite a bit. And this substrate is not very easy to plant in, so I expect we will get some floaters. Okay, so the Monte Carlo is in. That was a really good portion for just 1 pot. Next plant is the Repens. This was a bit of a smaller pot, so we just have a couple of stems. I'm going to plant some here right after the Monte Carlo as a transition. And the last one right here in front of the rock. Then moving on to a plant that I've never used before. This is Bacopa compact. Very curious about this plant. Then all the way in the back right corner I'm going to plant some Rotala. This is Rotala Blood Red. Still quite a new Rotala I think. But yeah, this one is going to be super red, so very excited about that as well. Then in that gap over there, I'm gonna plant some Bacopa. This is Bacopa colorata, so it should also turn nice and reddish pinkish. Then next up the Hygrophila pinnatifida. This one is of course going on the wood. Okay, we're almost there. Lastly I have the weeping moss. I'm going to use that to cover up some of the white glue spots. For example here we can just apply a little bit more glue on top of that. And then just press the moss onto the glue. And I've also added a little bit of Monte Carlo in between the wood over there. Hopefully that's going to start cascading down, should look pretty cool. I think that's the planting done, guys. Give everything a little spray. Then we can move it to the shelf. Okay, the tank's all filled up, filter's up and running, and the heater is on as well. I've set it to 24 degrees Celsius. So the only thing left to do is to add the CO2. I mentioned earlier that I want to add CO2 to this tank as well. And obviously there's going to be a DOI system. Now, got it right here. If you've never seen this before, I already showed it a couple times on the channel, but it's very simple. On the bottom here we have a mixture with water, sugar and gelatin. And then on top of that we have water with yeast. So the yeast is going to start consuming the sugar, and in that process it will make CO2. It's very simple, very cheap. I mean, everybody has an empty soda bottle at home, everybody has some sugar at home, so the only thing you need is like gelatin and some yeast. And of course a little bit of CO2 tubing, can just also be regular airline tubing. And normally I would also add a CO2 diffuser. Now CO2 diffuser can be a little bit expensive, so it doesn't really fit in our budget right now. So I'm thinking I'm going to take the end of the CO2 tubing and connect that to the filter intake. So hopefully the CO2 bubbles will go into the hang on the back filter, then they will get mixed up there, and then hopefully that way we're going to get some CO2 dissolved into the water. Never tried it before, but let's see if it's going to work. Okay, first up, apologize for the crappy voice. I came down with a little cold or something, but yeah, it is what it is. 5 weeks have passed. Normally I would show you guys an end result after 3 to 4 weeks. This one needed a little bit more time and was a little bit more challenging. So yeah, a few challenges with this aquarium, mostly with the startup algae. I had quite a lot of diatoms and some green algae, but most of it has disappeared now. Another challenge was the relatively slow plant growth, especially with the Monte Carlo. I mean, we still don't even have a full carpet, but it's getting there. So right now the aquarium is still far from perfect, but I think it looks good. Plants are healthy and the aquarium is stable. I think that's most important. I'm sure many of you are wondering about the hardscape, especially the wood that I locally collected in the forest. It did get a little bit of mold on it on the beginning, but right now that's all gone and it's actually looking good. I also don't think it has any negative effect on the water parameters or anything. Now let's talk a little bit about the inhabitants. Because we got a heater with this setup, I decided to move my Betta in here. This is my Galaxy Koi Betta. I've had him for quite a while. He's doing good, but I recently discovered a white bump on his dorsal fin. Not sure what that is, but it doesn't seem to be bothering him, so let's hope he will be fine. I've also added some yellow Neo Caridina shrimp, some Otocinclus and some Amano shrimp. Now for the moment we've all been waiting for, how much did I spend in total? So let's see. Of course we got the tank and all the amazing equipment for 60 euros. Then I bought the substrate and those root tabs for 11.50. I bought a background foil which was 6.99. Super glue was 4.29. For the CO2 system I needed some yeast which was 95 cents, some gelatin which was 1.39, and some tubing as well, that was 3.80. And then lastly, of course, the plants, those were 22 euros and 30 cents. So that brings it to a total of 111 euros and 22 cents.
After the tank was set up, I did buy one more thing. You might have already seen it. It's the CO2 diffuser. So the method with the tubing directly into the filter inlet, it worked, but it wasn't the best. It was also a little bit noisy, so I decided to just buy a small diffuser. This one was €8, so that brings the total spend to 120. So we went a little bit over budget. I guess if we wouldn't have the CO2 system, and maybe if I would have skipped the glue, we would have stayed within the €100 budget. So I think €120 is still not too bad. So I'm actually quite happy with the end result. I mean, this was definitely the cheapest aquarium I've ever built. Maybe it's not the most beautiful, but then again, it's only 5 weeks old, you know? I think if you see this tank in another 2-3 months from now, it's gonna look completely different. If there's one thing I regret, it's buying this substrate. It was so difficult to plant in it. And even right now, you know, if you're trimming the stems and you want to replant the tops, it's so difficult. They constantly float up to the surface. So if I could go back in time, I would probably go with the dirt and the gravel method, you know. Of course, this was just one way of setting up a low budget aquarium. There's many other ways of doing it, maybe even cheaper ways, but this was my method. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, then don't forget to smash the like button. As always, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.